Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Husky Hockey Podcast, your number one resource to remind you that sometimes a hockey game can go sideways in 16 seconds for the bad guys, but we can counter that in Game 3 with 14 seconds between goals for the good guys. I'm Weldie, sitting here with Andrew. We got a lot to talk about on this episode here. Huskies, no, not sweep, but did end up taking out the Minnesota Bulldogs, ends their season, advances to St. Paul for the Frozen Faceoff. I always go, no matter what, but it's always a little bit better when St. Cloud State ends up making it. Heck of a weekend, both good and bad for your Huskies, but overall they got the job done, and I have to say that's that was kind of the main task at hand. Andrew, what were your thoughts on the weekend?
Yeah, obviously the important thing there is that they got the job done, and as you said, ended the season of Duluth. That's been a tough thing for any team to do in the last decade. Haven't missed the Frozen Faceoff since I believe the first year of the NCHC. Not counting the COVID year and then the Grand. Well, I mean, everyone made the Grand Forks year, but just to say that it's been a difficult task to defeat them in the first round. Took them 3 games to do it, but and at times it wasn't pretty from the Huskies' perspective. But especially that Saturday game. But guys stepped up that needed to, and getting Peart and Treyball back was a nice sign. Now you gain 2. We'll get to, I don't think Peart was very impressive, but you get 2 back, but you lose 1 with Lutke missing Game 3, and we don't know exactly what his status is. So, I guess we're netting 1 positive. We get 1. We're not down to 5D. We're at 6, I guess. And again, I think Treyball's not close to 100%. Yeah, and Peart's just kind of a turnover machine to begin with. So
it's really funny because right when you said how it's 1, like the net kind of you gain 2 but lose 1, I immediately thought of both Treyball's turnover that turned to a goal and Peart's turnover that turned directly into a goal. So yeah, when you're talking about how you don't think Treyball's 100%, I agree. And then Peart is always kind of boom or bust when it comes to the, the playmaking side of it. It's, you don't really know what you're going to get with him when he's on the ice. So.
And yeah, disappointing that if Lukey is going to be done here, that's not a good sign. Seeing as if it did seem to me that Treyball was more injured, if that makes sense. Like he looked more skittish on the ice, whereas Peart's head scratchers were just kind of what Peart does, and didn't really look injury related. Peart can Peart. And again, if the bar is Treyball, like let's say he was 50% healthy, if that, you got to think if Lutke is at that bar, he'll be playing. We don't got too many weekends left here, so you'd like to think if these guys, if there's no exposed bone sticking out, that they're going to at least make a valiant effort to make.
They're still going to tape it
to put on the ice. That's right. So, but getting back to the weekend, yeah, it was. I mean, it's nice to see some guys scoring that normally don't. I mean, Miller obviously had a great weekend. First multi-goal game in his career, including got to be like a 197-foot empty netter.
It was like a turnaround fadeaway as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that he just rocked back and just shot it. He flat out said that it was luck, but still,
we'll take it.
The awareness, yeah, we'll definitely take it.
And then on Sunday, I think the game kind of turned with Cooper Wiley and Ingram scoring those 2 goals within the 14-second time period, and Wiley with a wraparound play.
Mm-hmm.
I texted a friend. It's I didn't have that one on my bingo board, and then Larson essentially said the same thing. He didn't use the bingo card analogy, but he's like, "Yeah, if you would have told me he was going to score on a wraparound, I would have been shocked." And we were eye to eye on that. And Wiley played well especially on Sunday. Not only did he have that key goal, but there was a 2-on-1 opportunity that he broke up later in the game. And so I thought he probably played his best game of the season on Sunday. So getting some scoring, Crannell on the flip side, Crannell is still struggling. But getting some depth scoring, that's always huge come playoff time. And that's maybe was the difference of the weekend for the Huskies.
I do agree. Crannell seems snake bitten. Whereas it just feels like his shots aren't connecting nearly as much as they were obviously earlier in the year. Miettinen right now, his shots are connecting. They're just a little bit off. I mean, he had that one post shot that golden opportunity. He had a couple other good chances. But I do still think Cronulla is being effective, just kind of being a pest. Now, obviously, somebody who is your top point getter, you want him to do a little bit more. But I think he's still being effective, but not nearly obviously as effective as we would want to be or that we need him to be, coming in, especially when we're going to end up playing North Dakota. So,
yeah, and Lutke, I forgot, he gets the weekend off to a good start. Another sort of a nice aggressive play coming into the zone or from the sideboards and kind of roofing a backhander. So Crannell and no goals. We had, Crookshank scores the 3rd goal on Sunday, but that's really the Miller too. But of the top 6, Miller is the guy that doesn't score as often as even Kupka or obviously Crookshank, Miettinen, Crannell, Okabe. So getting those contributions, I think, are huge. And the other thing too which is interesting, is how Larson played the goaltending this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Surprised that he did not pull Bassey on Saturday after it got to 4-1. Takes the time out, and I thought he was going to pull Bassey, but he leaves him in.
I kind of wondered about that. I even wondered that after maybe it was the 3rd goal. I don't know. The
3rd and the 4th were the 16 seconds apart.
Okay,
goals.
Gotcha. It was,
and that 3rd goal was the one that Peart should have gotten an assist. So that's the one I really don't fault him. The other 3 I don't think were great goals for Bassey.
Correct. And that's where I wonder if it was just a 2-game series in the regular season, if he would have pulled him early, he did pull him early a couple series ago. Right. Or he pulled Castor really early. I can't remember which one it was.
He pulled Bassey in Omaha.
In Omaha.
In 5 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
Or 10 minutes in, something like that.
So I wonder if it was a situation where we technically have a game to play with at this point. Let them just ride out, kind of wave the towel here on this game, and then just kind of ride it out and then start Castor. Maybe that was his line of thinking.
Didn't seem. I was confused there because, I after the game after the second game, Larson comes out and says, "I thought we played great. 57 minutes of great hockey. It's just those 3 minutes that really screwed us." Which, again, another one of those "are we watching the same game" moments for me. I'm starting to maybe think that he's kind of just BSing in these things too. Maybe it's just you don't want to show too many of your cards. But
I don't know. I wouldn't say it was 57 minutes of great hockey, but at the same time, I thought there were a lot of, I hate to say this type of crap, but I do think there was a little bit of puck luck and a little bit of...
Well, sure, it's Duluth, so there's a lot of puck luck involved.
And I do think that aside from that, we played pretty good. I wouldn't say that we played great, but like I still think we had chances. And
Yeah,
I thought
the third period,
it was us
you
that
outshot
we
them pretty
weren't.
well. But I mean, it's a 4-1 game. That's Duluth. Duluth is up. They're not going to force the issue offensively. It's natural for St. Cloud to outshoot them as much as they did in the third period on Friday, or on Saturday, I should say. And credit to Jim Rich, who they went back to that on Sunday, and they gave some more data because they said like their analytics team, which I don't know if that's like Enga and Kuster, and I don't know what that department entails personnel wise, but they were saying, yeah, we had 12 shots from down, from the points and then deeper than the dots, something like that. Like they had some numbers to back up their claim about how well they played on Saturday, which I appreciate that because just from a gut perspective, I didn't really see really much of a push or a sense of urgency. That's the thing. Like if you thought that you wanted to win that game, you make the goalie change to maybe give you some spark of momentum. But from your perspective, maybe it's we're going to concede this game and we want to keep Castor as fresh as possible. Don't have him waste some of his energy with this half a game when we're sort of waving the white flag. Bring it back on Sunday. And he also made a good point too. It's like, do you really want to have a guy for 3 straight games in a weekend? He hasn't done that this year, probably ever in his college career. Well, surely not, because CC hasn't played a deep playoff series when he was there. So you have the luxury of having 2 goalies that have been very good this year. So I was interested because I thought if he wasn't pulling him on game 2, that I figured he was going to go back to Bassey. But I was pleasantly surprised because I was the one here last weekend saying that he should have started Castor on Friday in the Duluth series. I would assume now he's going to go back with Castor in the Frozen Faceoff, but who knows? I've been so wrong on this all year about how they've been handling the goaltenders. We'll see. But I thought that was an interesting wrinkle of the weekend, where it's like Duluth is just rocking with Stay Skull. 5 straight games here. He got all the action in these back-to-back weekends for Duluth, and he was good. He was better than his numbers would have suggested. He was this year. So, yeah, it was it's Duluth, a pesky team, as you said, and they're always a tough out. But I just think after in that second period on Sunday, where the Huskies put up over 20 shots, got down fairly early, first minute of the second period. But like that Wiley play really sort of sparked them. And then Ingram shortly thereafter, 3 goals in that period, one of the best periods they've played all year, I'd say. And that's really kind of what drove them to that win. So yeah, like I said, it wasn't their best weekend of hockey, certainly, but this year, but you got the job done, and it sets up a pretty intriguing weekend in St. Paul. So, but I want to kind of, I don't want to get too much away from this Duluth weekend too, because I know that you have some more thoughts. I thought too that the Sunday game was just, and I didn't mind it actually, because we're the ones always kind of complaining about over officiating. Pretty conspicuously under officiated on Sunday. Plenty of calls could have been called that went uncalled. Did you think that had any effect as far as, pace of the game? I mean, just the one brief power play for each team, because they called 2 penalties and they overlapped each other, so there was no real special teams action all game until Duluth pulled their goaltender. And I wonder if that if that had any effect as far as how the game unfolded.
Yeah, it was. A lot has been said about the officiating, and especially this weekend too, when you kind of compare and contrast, the game 3s, I guess, or even the whole series in general, when you're looking at like the Omaha, North Dakota series versus the St. Cloud, Minnesota Duluth series, because, for our series, I felt like it was a hard fought, gritty, high intensity playoff type game, and there were not a lot of penalties that, definitely should have been called. Whereas Omaha, North Dakota, I felt, or just kind of gauging temperature from some of the feedback that I saw on Twitter, it was just the referee gong.
It was a lot of calls,
and so it's like it. Maybe the balance is right in the middle. I didn't mind it too much. I didn't think anything was overly egregious, except that I do feel Minnesota Duluth maybe was a little bit happy after the whistle or some other kind of chops that they've taken. I know there was one time where a Duluth player laid out Cronulla even after the buzzer clearly was off while he was away from the play. That was at the end of the second period. But it was... you could have, but at the same time, it's as Gino said about 40 times over the weekend, Rubbin's racing. That was kind of his go-to phrase. Just loves Days of Thunder, I guess. So, you got a favorite Tom Cruise film?
He was in a movie called Magnolia that I really like. I wouldn't call it, he wasn't like the star of the film. It was like an ensemble piece. But that was pretty good. Risky Business, I do like.
Okay. All right.
It's been so long since I've seen Top Gun. I didn't see the new one that came up, but I've heard good things about.
Yeah, people love it. So.
But he's fine. Jared Maguire is good. There's some.
I really like the OG Mission Impossible, so that's always my go-to. And Edge of Tomorrow was really good too. If you get a chance to watch that, so
we'll put that on my list.
Put it on the list. So, but with that, power plays weren't really a factor. Which with both St. Cloud and Minnesota Duluth's power play. Where it could really turn the game. Now, there was one power play goal scored on Friday's game for Dominic James, which I don't really fault our penalty kill, actually. I thought that was just a heck of a setup and a heck of a shot by him. So I was just kind of like, that's going to be a tough one to stop there. But there was kind of a key penalty kill that we needed after I think it was on Saturdays, or no, I think it was on Sundays. Cronulla goes to the box, and then that's kind of a key point where it's like, okay, let's this is where we really need to kind of hunker down, and hopefully this kill takes that next step, or they're able to kill it off. We get the benefit of evening up and everything. And then after that, even the whole game, even after they scored on Saturday or on Sunday first, I wasn't really too concerned. I just felt like we were going to end up busting through, because I didn't think the horseshoe could last that long for Minnesota Duluth. And it ended up being the freshmen really stepped up big with Wiley and Ingram. So that's that's where that depth comes in. Ingram has been, you're seeing he's getting a little bit more comfortable. I expect a really big year from him next year. So this is, but just the steps that he's taken throughout the season, it's been kind of fun to watch. So
Faceoffs, our favorite stat, dominant by the Huskies this weekend. Sahlquist in particular was dominant. See how he does against North Dakota, because I remember when they went up to North Dakota, he had some rough games up there face-off wise. Maybe North Dakota's just got they just have figured him out on the dots. Who knows? And Sahlquist 2 assists on Sunday, so it's not his worst weekend as a Husky. So props to him. A much maligned player on this podcast, but certainly capable of having a positive impact, and he showed that this weekend. As we said, Peart, I thought he did fine on Friday. Trayable, as I said, was more noticeably iffy on Friday night. Saturday night, he had that bad turnover to set up the third goal for Duluth, and then missed keeping a zone, a drop pass to the point on the power play right when the power play was ending that set up that breakaway for the UMD defenseman. It's clearly like the first breakaway he's had in a while, because he was like just pushing the puck forward.
Yeah.
And it was a little awkward to see, but Bassey bailed him out on that one. So Peart again showing some of the downsides of his play, but again coming off of an injury. I don't know if I should expect more than what we saw this weekend. So it's I think an emotional series win over a rival. It's pushing you into another rivalry game here. Again, I was someone that I'm not expecting a deep run from this team, the NCAAs, but the more momentum you can create here, and if you are going to be getting some bottom six guys contribute and carry you in some cases, it can happen. I'm slowly getting back to the point, or getting to the point where maybe they can win a game in the NCAAs.
And that's what the key was in our 2013 run, was that depth. I mean, that was Bennick, Thorson, and that was Bennick's freshman. Like, there were talks about shutting him down. And then they decided for the second half to...
That's right. Yeah, because he debuted after Christmas.
Yeah.
Because he had that, was he a broken leg or something?
He had a broken leg the first day of practice.
Right.
So...
Right.
So there were talks about that, but, he obviously was a huge part of that run and that whole regional, where we were able to get our first Frozen Four berth. And then, that was, because of that third line, fourth line, depth. And that's what you need when these...
Well, look at, in 2021 too, Will Hammer was the MVP of that regional, if there was an MVP. And then you guys like Molinar scored a goal in that Mankato game. And so, you can. Those are old guys. Can really make a difference at the end of the year. So it's my excitement is building. I just like this time of year of college hockey, just in general, playoff time and then the regionals and all that. So it's I'm very excited for this weekend at the X. I don't know if we want to transition to that yet, but it should be a good, at least that Friday game, I think with Dakota, it should be a good one, because Dakota has been playing better in the second half. And DeRitter seems to have found himself really after his rock bottom was that St. Cloud series in St. Cloud. But Schlossman had some stats in his write-up where his stats are right around where Castor's year-long stats are, so like 915 save percentage. He's been playing with those. He's been putting up those numbers since that December 5th date, which is that Saturday game against St. Cloud. So he's been playing better. And when we saw him in North Dakota a couple of weeks ago, they've got the weapons of Gaber and Blake. Not too much beyond that. Again, if we're talking about depth of St. Cloud, North Dakota's going to, if they're going to be successful, it's going to be depth guys too. And we saw that third game in Omaha. Guys like Hain scoring big goals for them. You've got the power play for North Dakota, vaunted power play. It's cooled off a bit since its peak. It's not quite at the 30% clip it was at for much of the year, but still obviously very dangerous, and particularly when considering the St. Cloud penalty kill, which again had a better weekend, but wasn't tested as much this weekend because of the lack of calls. But and St. Cloud's power play units didn't get much action and weren't very successful themselves either this weekend. So see how special teams plays a factor here. You obviously got the intangibles here. There's going to be more green in the building than Cardinal and black. But that could potentially be a motivator.
Maybe they'll all be too liquored up from St. Patty's Day.
Well, they definitely will. We'll see if that makes a difference or not. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. And North Dakota has much more on the line here, much more at stake. I mean, they need to win this Frozen Faceoff in order to make it to the tournament, where St. Cloud is going to make the tournament no matter what. And so they have more to play for, but you were able to vanquish one rival with Duluth this weekend. You can end you could end two team seasons. I mean, if CC continues their miracle run, you could squash their dreams too in the title game if you get past North Dakota. But focusing on North Dakota, you have it in your hands to end their season and make some ticket holders for that Fargo Regional saddened at the same sense. And maybe St. Cloud would be going over to Fargo themselves that following weekend. Who knows? Looking like a pretty decent possibility at this point. So that's what I would look forward to the most, at least just for Fridays, is being able to end another team season. What else are you looking for this weekend? Not only with let's start with St. Cloud. We can maybe think about the Colorado half of the bracket. We can talk about that a little bit too. But the St. Cloud North Dakota game on Friday night. What are your keys? Or what are you going to be looking at in the stands? Probably a little liquored up yourself. What are you going to be looking for that night?
Maybe a little bit. There is a very important thing here that before we go too far into this weekend, we got to go back to Duluth.
Oh, yep.
Because we forgot.
Play the sounder.
So we totally forgot about the Go Huskies.
Sorry, you're the host. I don't know why.
I'm the weekend. I was going with it until I was like, wait a minute, pump the brakes.
Just raise your hand. Yeah, raise your hand. Do the international runway stop sign.
Sure thing. So let's get to it. Who your Go Huskies? Woo player of the weekend? Who you got? Who's your pal?
I had to think about it. If because the 3 games kind of throws you off, and you had the one sort of clunker in between. If it was just Sunday, I would have gone Wiley. But for the 3 games, I'll go Miller. Not sure if I've given him one this year. I think I have. I feel like I have. But this is a good way to finish out his playing in front of the St. Cloud fans, his last weekend of doing that. And like I said, first multi-goal game for him. Then he adds another one on Saturday. So 3 goals on the weekend for him. Guy just coming in with 2 goals on the season. So, but as always, too, energy guy, power, penalty killer extraordinaire. And I've just I'm going to miss watching him play because he didn't really put up the numbers.
We didn't put him on the power play. That's why. Well, there was.
I was gonna say
there was one time there on Fridays. I tweeted out the picture too, where it was a rebound that came right to Adam Ingram, but since Adam Ingram's a lefty, and there was a wide open net, it was on the wrong side of him, and he couldn't convert. You put a righty on there, and Miller, boom, that's a goal, and that's where I was like. Obviously Ingram has had a heck of a lot of plays this season, even from that spot. But it's just I like a righty in that situation on those boards, and I think Miller would have buried that. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, I know that when we talk about Salquist, he's just not producing, and you can look at Miller's stats line over his career, and they're not going to dazzle you. But I do feel like he does put in the intangible work and the stuff that doesn't show up in the box score, which we may scoff at when we're talking about Salquist. But the difference there is, Salquist gets a lot of power play time. Miller doesn't. Yeah. If Miller did, I bet you those numbers would improve. But yeah, I'm gonna go Miller. But it wasn't a home run easy decision. What are you thinking?
Well, go Huskies woo. Also, just said it was a tough call. Liked a lot of grit shown Friday and Saturday. Kupka had a point all 3 nights. Wiley stepped up again for the most part. Bushy had 2 or 3 big hits on Steve's, which is always a plus. And Castor looked really good on Sunday. Yami seemed to throw Minnesota Duluth players off their game with some of his antics. He also really liked Miller. Strong effort all weekend. Just tough dude. I think he kind of echoes your sentiment too of gonna kind of miss watching him play. I've always called Miller an effective Johnny Swanson, and that's kind of what I stick by. So, but Go Huskies Woo did end up actually going with Castor, and I think what his, I don't want to speak too much for him, but he was the goaltender who looked solid in the game winning in the series clinching. So that's kind of what he went with. I do think, like I said, I wasn't really worried that game. I do want to amend that a little bit. I wasn't worried after he made those saves in the first minute 10 because Minnesota Duluth coming across having 2 golden opportunities and Castor stuffs them both. After that, I'm like, okay, if we can kind of right the ship here, we're going to end up winning this game on top. So obviously happy we did this. And usually I'm not that calm in the third period of a game, but I was like, I just don't see Minnesota Duluth taking this game over. I thought we were playing well as a team and defensively, and that we were going to kind of close it out. Quickly back to Friday too, with the Huskies having the lead, and Minnesota Duluth was really pressuring the last 5 minutes or so. But, kind of around the 3-minute mark, maybe that's a little bit too early, but I'm feeling like if you've got the momentum and you've got the chances buzzing, pull the goalie at that time. You don't have to wait until it's a little bit later. Just go when it feels like you have something cooking and don't really worry about the time on the clock as much. But Sandelin decides to wait, to hold on pulling Stay-Skull, and held it for probably a little bit too long, because when they did pull him, that was right when the turnover happened and Miller was able to shoot it down the ice. So I thought that was kind of a little bit of a misstep on him. So I'll just criticize the 3-time national champion as a coach and just say I know more than he does. So,
and who was your pal? I missed that.
No, I didn't get to it yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was just started talking about just kind of random things that I forgot to mention when we were talking about it, because you just went right into this weekend.
I know.
No, but my pal was also Miller, just because with his goal, which his play all weekend I thought was incredibly strong, but him showing up on the score sheets, the 197 footer, and also me learning a new rule about being in the act of shooting and it going through it, even though the pegs and the net's off, and that's a goal scored. I didn't know that was kind of the ruling on it. So that was kind of interesting that
that was interesting. So I noticed they must have changed the pegs, because they're not the yellow pegs anymore. These were like a black type color. I noticed that, obviously with Stay-Skull having so much trouble last weekend, maybe they decided to change something and they may have switched out the pegs. And it wasn't as much of a issue this weekend, but except for that play, which when they went to review, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. If they wave this goal off after the net is knocked off again with Stay-Skull, and I don't know. So it should have been a goal. Like I realized the net was off, but that so what? Tell me what the rule is exactly, because you're telling me that there was like some chatter where people were saying that should have been waved off.
No, not necessarily. It was just that I didn't know, like, if the net's off its moorings and the puck wasn't in the net and then crossed the line, I didn't know what the ruling was on it. So that's where I was a little bit. That's where I just learned something new about the actual verbiage of the rule. So here's how it's stated in the rule book, which obviously leads to some subjectivity on the refs' part, which is obviously
well. And lovely. They came out and they said they didn't just say the goal stands; they said the call is confirmed. Yep. So they must have been pretty sure about it,
and they got the call right in looking at it. So net dislodgement under awarded goals. In order to award a goal in this situation, the goalpost must have been displaced by the actions of a defending player. The puck must have been shot, or a player must be in position to shoot at the goal prior to the goalpost being displaced, and it must be determined that the puck would have entered the net between the normal position of the goalpost.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So I just didn't know if like the net was off. And it's like, well, nope, doesn't matter. The net was off.
Yeah, I mean that would be easily exploited. Then any shot that comes to you can just knock the net off, and yeah, it's no goal because the net was off.
Oh, you don't think
you're going to call a penalty on it? Then okay, we'll take the penalty instead of giving up the goal. So sure.
You don't think hockey players would have a little more gamesmanship, a little more sportsmanship on that aspect? And
to quote Gino, the goalie's just being savvy. It's a savvy move.
It's just a savvy move, using the shoulder and his body weight. So, anyway, yes, Miller is my Go Huskies Woo player of the weekend. So, all right, flipping that. Now we can flip over. Now we can transition smoothly over to
just edit. Do a little magic of editing. Just plop the segment here. Yep, but
exactly.
UND versus SCSU. What do you got?
I hate these guys. I hate them so much, and I want to end their season. I do not care what happens in the championship game. I want to end North Dakota's season. I would consider that a successful season, especially from where it was at the beginning of the year to now being in a chance where we can end their season. I think is just. I think it would be awesome. So I hate North Dakota. I don't really like the matchup right now with how well they're playing, how locked down defensively they're playing, and with how banged up our defense is. I mean, this is, when I talked about North Dakota previously, they can come at waves. They can really come into cycling and, go towards periods where they have, minute and a half, 2.5 minutes in the zone of sustained pressure, and that can just build. And that's what I really want to avoid. And us being so limited right now on defense, that's what really worries me in especially in 1 and done kind of scenarios. So that's where I'm sitting at a little bit worried. So what do you think?
Yeah, North Dakota, since being swept in Denver, got swept at Denver in the second week of February. The next weekend they played the Huskies in North Dakota. Since that Husky series, 6-1-2 for North Dakota. So
now my friend Dunkel on Twitter, he did point out that anybody would be hot if they have to play Omaha 5 times in March. And I think that's a pretty good point. So everyone will be hot then.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I was doing lawnmower pulls in my living room, but I do admit I was rooting for North Dakota to win that game on Sunday.
Really?
Mostly because I want the Omaha streak to continue.
I don't think I've ever rooted for North Dakota in my life.
Well, I have, because I want the Omaha streak of incompetence, which I didn't realize. So they won on Friday. That was Gabinet's first ever win in the playoffs, not series win, a win of a game in the series. And in the NCHC, I suppose you could say they improved because they won a game. They improved to 3-17 in the playoffs. And all three of those wins, incidentally, are game one wins. And they won the very first year they hosted Denver at home. And won game one, which was a Thursday-Saturday series. If you remember, there was a Demi Lovato concert on Sunday. They had to move the series up a day in order to accommodate that. For some reason, I remember that. And then they won in 2017. They won the first game at Western, but then lost the last two. This one, again, winning game one, losing the last two. And the streak of not making a neutral site phase of a conference tournament is extended to, 2005. So this is 18 years since then. So pretty impressive stuff. But getting back to North Dakota, yeah, like you said, or like we both said, they have been playing well here down the stretch, albeit against a lot of that being against Omaha. But yeah, and like I said, they have that good top line with Gaber and Blake. The others have been trailing behind. You got Jandrick from the point, who's having a very good year for him, 33 points, but then no one with 20 after those top three. So it's really been a top-heavy offense and not much beyond that. But when St. Cloud has played in the past, it's been a lot of the times it has been sort of bottom six guys that have killed him. Ness, he always seems to score his only goals against the Huskies. Saw that McLaughlin scored a goal this when they played in Grand Forks this last month or 6 weeks ago. And like I said, DeRitter, he's won this job. Was sort of splitting time earlier in the season with Helston, but like I said, since Christmas has been playing much better. But even with that good stretch, that save percentage is just at .901. So that tells you how much of a hole they put themselves in. And really, you can, we're going back to December 5th to see his turnaround, but it's really been since that, after that Denver sweep is when the good play has really emerged for him. So they're going to be, they're playing better than the Huskies have been playing, just based on the Huskies' last, post Anhorn injury run here. So we'll see if that momentum, we'll see if that carries in this game. But similar to how we've talked about this matchup, both in St. Cloud and then at Grand Forks, I do think St. Cloud has more talent here on paper, the deeper offensive team. And Anhorn, his lack, or his being out of the lineup definitely hurts, but I think the defense, you can give maybe UND the slight edge with kind of their top end guys with Clevin, and Jandrick perhaps, but we definitely saw some leakiness from that back end, in St. Cloud in particular, but just in the first half of the year, that was really the tail of the tape for UND. Bad defense, bad goaltending. They definitely have shored it up, but it's still vulnerable, I think. So again, I like to think that St. Cloud should win this game, but tournament time, and you got the Green Bastard faction quotient in play here. St. Patrick's Day, green beer, green bastards. It's anything can happen, and so now, and like I said, it's more. This means more North Dakota. So we'll see if St. Cloud is up to the challenge here to if it motivates them enough to end their season, which it should. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
Now, I will have to say that as dominating as the University of North Dakota has been on the, in the XL Energy Center during the WCHA days, and that
different story.
It's been a different story in the post conference or in the conference tournaments here in the NCHC. So it's the the ghosts of the XL was or what did they call it? Ingolstadt South, they used to call it, because of how well they used to play in the WCHA. That has not come to fruition yet. So
yeah, their only Frozen Faceoff win was in Grand Forks when they hosted it in 2021. So, and not, I'm trying to think offhand. I mean, you've been to all these, but only like 1 or 2 title games, and they've been in it, I think, every year except once. Yeah, that's right. We fact checked that. They lost to Denver in 2019 in the playoffs, so they've only missed the XL once in the NCHC. But I know St. Cloud beat them in 2015. Miami beat them the first year in the first round in the semifinal. I think there was there a UND Duluth title game? I think 2017 or 2018, maybe 2017. It must have been. That might be the only championship game that they've played in the XL phase of or at least going back to the Target Center too. But the NCHC Frozen Faceoff is, yeah. So you're saying, I mean, definitely not the hot hand that it was in the WCHA days. So again, maybe we can add to that run of disappointment this weekend. Let's hope.
Oh, exactly. So they lost to Western last year. So,
but not in the semis, not in the final, not
correct
the final
in the semis. So
yeah, I think it might just be the one title game for them appearance in the NCHC Frozen Faceoff. But I'm just going off the top of my head there, so that very well might be wrong, because they didn't win it the year they won the national title. That was St. Cloud's. St. Cloud's won Frozen Faceoff title, and North Dakota wouldn't even made the title game then, because that was Duluth. Duluth must have beat them because St. Cloud played Denver that year in the semis. So yeah, it's but it's always a raucous atmosphere, and as you said, the St. Patrick's Day, it'll be exactly on that day too, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just like the unofficial St. Patty's weekend. It'll literally be St. Patrick's Day. So
it'll be real-time St. Patty's Day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
do you have any thoughts on this Denver CC? I mean, we drove by that. CC springs the lesser likely upset. You know, we kind of figured North Dakota is going to beat Omaha. But I did say last weekend, I said I'd be surprised if CC won the series, but I said, hey, when Barrico can steal a game, well, he stole 2 of them. And CC was able to sweep Western, shockingly, setting up a gold pan matchup in the matinee for Friday. Now, what I did not realize about Denver, I didn't realize we're talking about injuries, how banged up Denver is. Corona got hurt at or maybe during the Western series or shortly thereafter, because I did mention that Matt Davis got both the starts against CC the last weekend of the regular season. I was just thinking maybe they're just trying to rest up because they had already clinched, home, the Penrose and all that. But no, that was more injury related. And that continued this weekend, and added to those injuries, Barons hasn't played since Western. A bunch of role players like Wright, a couple other guys, and then Rizzo sat out on the Saturday game against Miami here. So some pretty key guys. And they didn't break a sweat beating Miami, as it turned out, with, not quite their B team, but certainly not their A team. And with all those injuries. And so that's going to be the big key for not only Denver going forward beyond the Frozen Faceoff, but also CC's chances. Obviously, CC needs to win this tournament in order to get into the NCAAs. And, I know you're not high on Corona, but playing Matt Davis instead of Corona, and then maybe missing a guy like Rizzo or Barons out of the lineup, could give CC's a puncher's chance in that semi game. So what are you feeling about this matchup? I mean, it's still hard. I mean, Denver's 11 game winning streak currently over CC, so they have completely owned CC of late. And again, that's including with these injuries. They played CC during last weekend, so they played them with a banged up lineup and still was able to sweep them there. So, do you give CC a chance here? You buying into their momentum or the numerical factor?
I don't give them a chance. And maybe if it was CC against somebody else, fill in the blank. I mean, if it was... But just the fact that it's the rivalry as well between the two teams, and I just think that adds maybe a little bit more fire to Denver. And I think just Denver, just top to bottom, is deeper, even with all these injuries. You put the lineups next to each other, you still give the edge to Denver. I mean, you've got obviously Mbereko and Net, who could steal a game, but Denver hasn't had a problem with him yet. And then you have Laba and Hunter McCown, but after that, everything kind of drops off fairly quickly. So I think just Denver's too deep when it comes to that, and I'm the one saying that Denver's a one-line team too. So it's even with that, but I think that depth comes especially defensively, and that's where. That's why I think Corona also gets some of those big kind of kudos when he's actually really average, is because his defense has been superior. And that's where I come from, at least that side of the coin.
Yeah. So this.
So I don't give CC a chance.
I mean, I give them a chance. If they're going to be Denver, it's going to be in a one-game situation. Like, I couldn't see them being in a series, but one game, anything can happen. And if they are going to win, it's going to be like a 1-0, 2-1 game. I'll give them a 5% chance. Are you going low, over or under? 5% chance. You give
lower.
Them CC. Lower than 5%.
Lower. I would give them about a 3.
Okay,
is kind of where I'm at. You give me 2.5. I'm still, then I'll be on the over, but I'm not giving them more than a 3% chance.
I'm trying to think of the situation here. So you got Corona,
especially 11 games. I mean, I guess unless your thought process is they're due, which is,
and of those 11, as we mentioned, Corona, he had a 5 shutout streak against CC in that, and then he finally gave up a goal to them, but it was a penalty shot goal. So he hasn't given up a goal other than a penalty shot in the last 6 games against CC. But this Matt Davis might be the starter. I mean, so I'm looking at his game by game log here. So he must have come in for Corona. Corona must have gotten hurt during that Western game because he finished out the last minute and change of the second Western game, and then it has started the last 4 games. But Corona at 222 goals against and 914 save percentage. Davis, and this is not in really token work anymore. It's 12 games played, 500 minutes. It's not a small sample size. 180 goals against and a 923 save percentage. And his sophomore, Corona's a senior. I think he can come back for a 5th year if he wants, but Matt Davis might be the goalie that we see next year for them. I keep thinking of, have you ever heard of Mac Davis? He's like a country western singer in like the 70s and 80s. He wrote some songs for like late career songs for Elvis Presley. And then he had a brief movie career. He was in a football movie called North Dallas 40. He's actually got a interesting vibe on screen, I think, but he just died maybe a year or 2 ago. This is Matt, M-A-T-T, not Mac, but seems like he's a serviceable enough goaltender for them. So,
are you talking? Like, is he like when you say country? Are you talking like a Croce type of country, or
like cowboy boots and boot scooting, root tooting? We're going to the bar. We're throwing back a couple Budweisers and We're heading on the hay bale, and we're spitting out that chewed tobacco, and we're gonna have a fun time now. Croce's more folk. I wouldn't even call it country, but In the Ghetto, maybe my favorite Elvis song. He wrote that. So he's got a nice drawl.
I cannot think of that song without thinking of an episode of New Girl where
I don't get the reference.
Zoe Deschanel is at a funeral and dresses up as Elvis and sings In the Ghetto.
It's a good one. It's in that fat Elvis era, which I don't really love Elvis, like the Heartbreak Hotel, like that. Like Elvis. I kind of like the fat and drunken, slobbish late career Elvis. That's your Elvis
heyday.
Yeah, that's what I'm attracted to more so. But
I don't know a lot of Elvis in general. I mean, obviously, like some of the rock and roll, early on, but like that later, I know he did a lot of gospel hits too, right? But like I don't know.
Yeah, even we're the millennials who have Boomer Corner here regularly. Even Elvis he's more like greatest generation. Like his heyday is like the 50s. Like we're going real back. Let's be honest. His heyday was before my parents were born. So, but like the mythology, I don't know if you saw this Elvis movie that came out, which apparently is pretty decent. But the Elvis myth, I think, is pretty fascinating, and I do kind of like the actors over the years that have given a crack at portraying him. So I might see that movie that came out. I heard he was pretty good in it.
I was at a bachelor party 7 years ago, and went to up in Nisswa. I can't remember the resort. Kind of in that area on Gull Lake.
Craigan's.
I think
Craigan's is on Gull Lake. I know they have several resorts, but I know of that one.
I don't think it was Craigan's because I think it was a little bit less nice. Because Craigan's is pretty nice, right?
Yeah, it's got a golf course, and
yeah
it's pretty nice. But there was a whole slew of them around that Brainerd, Gull Lake area.
Yeah, it was. At any rate, they had an Elvis impersonator there just before like the bar really gets hopping. So like the Elvis impersonator was there from like 7 till 8:30 or 9 or something like that, and then obviously all the young kids come in and drink until 2 and have all the shenanigans and whatnot. But I just remember like because we were pre-gaming, then we were going out to the bar and walked by and just like this whole lights show on the patio on the lake, and just this Elvis impersonator who's just not a good one. So shocker, if you're going up to Nisswa and you want a really good Elvis impersonator, you're not going to find it. But I just remember like all of these old people were sitting there just really getting into it, and they were really loving it. So it just kind of goes to show you when you're talking about like the myth and like the, I don't know, legend of Elvis, he's still incredibly popular with I wonder when we're sitting up there in like the nursing home, what's going to be, if it's going to be like a Britney Spears impersonator who's clearly not at all like Britney, if that's going to be the hot ticket that we're going to go see Britney.
It could be.
That's going to bug me. What is it called?
You're still hung up about the resort that you were at 8 years ago?
Yeah. Because I bet everyone was... like everyone's like, oh yeah, what happens there stays there. It's like the Vegas of
Gull Lake.
of Gull Lake, of Upper Minnesota.
Well, if you wanna, I can tap dance here for you. If you wanna frantically Google to find the name of this so you can sleep tonight. You had mentioned too. I just wanted to throw it out there because you again hurled the epithet that Denver is a one-line team, even though I told you they're not even running this Dornbach, Rizzo, Mazer line. They really haven't the bulk of the year. They split them up. So that right now they have 6 forwards that have 28 points or more, 5 that are cracking 30. So that's 2 full lines there of forwards that are really producing. And yeah, that top line is on the power play. They get power play time, but I think it was a pretty good move by Carl because it's really Devine had a natural hat trick. I think he had a 4-goal game actually in one of these Miami games. We saw Bros have a real good hot stretch, Denver or January, December ish, spanning the Christmas break. Aiden Thompson, 32 points as a freshman. And then you got a bunch
now,
of
correct
guys
me if I'm wrong.
Pretty
Thompson,
prolific offense.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Thompson really started coming on.
He had a late start to the year.
Yeah.
I don't know if he had an injury because he debuted in St. Cloud in Denver, the games that I was at. So that was like his first weekend. So yeah, that first month so 32 points basically with no October action for him. So in 30 games.
Okay,
so,
I got it. Nope, it wasn't. It was Pelican Lake, and it's Breezy Point.
There we go.
There we go. Now everyone's like, oh yeah, Breezy. We all know stories about what goes on at Breezy Point. I bet I'll get one person tweeting me like, oh yeah, I know that Elvis impersonator.
Yes, please do tweet him that. So yeah, should be an interesting weekend here in St. Paul. You want to throw anything out there as far as you are going to be in attendance?
I'm a little bummed that Western Michigan lost. I wanted to see because then it would have been Western Michigan, St. Cloud, and then Denver, North Dakota, and I think that would have been just super fun weekend of hockey. I think that would have been off the charts. Just
I kind of like, yeah. I mean, I agree.
And here, I just don't have a lot of hopes for the 4:00 game. I wish I did. I just.
Well, I like the fact that you have in each semifinal game you have a team that needs to win the whole thing. Whereas true. Western, as we'll get to in our sinkers and floaters, they're more on the. I mean, they're secure, but there are some situations that they could be knocked out of the tournament. But if they would have won this playoff series against CC, they would have been pretty much lock solid. So it would have been 3 teams that would have been solid, and then Dakota being the one team that really needed to win it. I kind of like the fact that you've got one desperate team in each semifinal that could make things interesting. So, yeah, and I'm the guy that's giving CC 2% more of a chance in that early game. So
they're suited.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's obviously this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it.
Got any pregame traditions? So you and your dad.
Yep.
Is there another more to the group that always goes?
Yep, there is. One of my college roommates and his dad actually. Okay. And then our group has expanded to another one of our college friends and his girlfriend.
Teresa not coming.
Usually, yeah. Teresa does not come. Nope. This is my birthday gift from my dad and has been for how long? Nice. So,
is it your birthday this weekend?
The 26th is my birthday.
Well, happy early birthday.
Yep. My birthday present was a Ferris State loss. So, if you want to know what that was on,
it might be on a regional.
I remember
a regional final. Sunday is the 26th here, so
I remember
a regional final that day.
A text message from my aunt that she sent that is like, sorry for the crappy birthday present or something like that, or what a crappy way to spend your birthday or something like that. And it's like, yep, that's pretty much it. Ferris F State. So, but yeah, I remember when I started this back in 2000 and I was underage, so Dad would take me to the Science Museum or try to find other fun things to do around St. Paul that are somewhat educational or or whatnot. And now it's like, all right, bar gets open, let's go. But yeah, so it's a good time. Also a good time to catch up. They're obviously they're all really big gamblers too, so they get into March Madness and the brackets, and so they've got they have kind of a cool different way of doing the brackets where they actually do like a snake format where they pick teams. So they pick teams all up and down the line. So they have 4 people in this pool, and so it's just a snake draft. So then up, the 1 seeds are gone and the 2 seeds are gone, and then so like all the way down, you have a rooting interest in one of the teams.
And then what do you just tabulate like the records of those teams?
Yep.
And then whoever has the highest, is there like more points given to the final versus the first round games, or are they all kind of weighted the same? I
think they're as they keep going more and more, you get more points as it continues.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's kind of a cool concept, but you need 4 people, no more, no less, for it to work. So, but there are sometimes like people would drop down. I mean, if you really feel strongly, you don't have to go like strict seeds in order. So if you really feel strongly that, you like the chances of a 10 seed that'll win instead of the remaining 9 seed, you can go right to the 10 seed and pick that one. So there's a little gamesmanship that kind of comes with it, and I always find that really interesting. So, yeah, it's but then, we used to obviously go, there used to be a third place game. That's gone. So now we're kind of, looking at ways to fill the time, early on. And I think we actually have reservations at Top Golf. So we're going to be going to Top Golf there, before the game on Saturday.
They've been scheduling a wild game matinee the last couple of years that they've done it. But that's, you want something non-hockey to fill that afternoon?
Not necessarily. I mean, we have gone to that wild game before.
Oh, you have?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, got the Bruins. I mean, they're having a pretty good year.
They're having a really good year. So it's
as far as Montgomery will be hanging out with the Denver folks before that game.
Give them the rah-rah. So, anything more you want to talk about with North Dakota, or do you want to switch to kind of the rest of any other hockey? Did you watch over the weekend? I know I watched a little bit of some of the Big Ten tournament that was going on Saturday. Obviously, the high school hockey tournament was going on, so I watched some of that. Really, I was just watching for Thorson.
That's really what I was doing too.
Yeah.
And he put on quite the show in the first round game.
Mm-hmm.
They were buckled down pretty good against Minnetonka, but
I think Minnetonka was on a whole nother level, though.
I missed the first. That was the only first round game that I saw that I was able to catch, and it was a bummer because it sounded like that Edina Moorhead game was a barn burner.
Yeah,
and then that Minnetonka Hill Murray game too was Minnetonka had to come back last minute to tie that one up and then win it. So I was saddened to miss out on those 3 games, the first 3 AA games. But those Class A semis, and then I thought the Class A semis and finals was the best of the weekend.
Yeah, they brought it.
And we were all kind of, all right, let's get the Hermantown Warroad matchup that we all are expecting. And about a minute goes, we got something to say about this. So that was really, really, it's fascinating to me too, the Hermantown arc. Like, because I was remembering, so Mount Meda had that call go against it, which I thought was a terrible call, the goalie interference late in the game that waved off a goal of theirs.
Yep.
And their coach was pretty animated about it. And it gave me flashbacks because I was thinking if they lose this game by a goal, the coach is going to go on the ice after the game and just bark at the refs, because that's what Bruce Plant did when Hermantown lost to St. Thomas.
Oh God, yeah.
And I was thinking, God, that was when Hermantown was the everyone's favorite underdog, against the machine of evil private school St. Thomas. And now Hermantown's come on, you're sandbagging. Everybody hates him now. You got move up. Come on. What are you doing? Move up.
It's the Dark Knight. You either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain, and that's what Hermantown has done. That's always the narrative: is when you're too successful in Class A, then therefore you got to move up. Doesn't matter. You got to move up, and even if you look, it's okay. Yeah, they won the championship last year, but before that, it was 2017, and then so I mean, it's not like they're winning championships year after year. Like, tell the section to get better, get good.
Yeah, I'm more for if you got you qualify by the enrollment. That's what it goes by. They're not even. It's not like you got the private school factor. That's not a case with them either. I am not one to say that you got to move up because looking at the single A bracket, the first round games are still. I mean, there are some blowouts in the first round games, but like
Section 3A,
those
semis, stopping ground.
But the semis and the finals have been really good of late, and it's not just Hermantown and everybody else certainly. So yeah, that was great. I'm glad you saw some of the Big Ten because that's one of the few games that it didn't catch. I was rocking 3 devices: my TV, iPad, and my computer hooked up. So by my count, I caught parts of 14 hockey games on Saturday.
Woo-hoo. Wow.
And that's counting the state tournament, the 2 finals there. But it was also included the 4 regionals for the women's NCAA tournament.
Oh, nice.
The 4 games of the NCHC playoffs. It's a couple, and again, was not watching those like from start to finish. It was sort of jumping back. It's like, so you had the Ohio State one was at 4 p.m. my time, or no, 3 p.m. And then the other 3 all started at 1. Didn't like that. Like space them out a little bit.
Yeah.
More. It's the same. Like what I liked about Hockey East, they had their single game quarterfinals on Saturday. They started one of them at 2 p.m. my time, so this would have been 4 p.m. Eastern. One at 2, one at 2:30, and then I think it was 5 and 5:30. So they made a concerted effort to split them up into 2 matinees, but then you still staggered the starts, and then 2 night games. I liked that. Whereas all the NCHC games were basically around at the same time or within the hour of starting of starting on Saturday. Same with like the ECAC, all started at the same time, and the women's regionals, like 3 of them were all at the same time. So it was kind of hopping around those. Like the Colgate St. Lawrence was a couple of the ECAC games, and then a couple of the Hockey East at Merrimack Boston College went double overtime. That was the last game that was basically the last game of the night. So I finished up with that one. So it was a long day of hockey.
Yeah, that's quite
but I enjoyed it thoroughly because, like I said, I do like this time of year. And so, yeah, so we've got some intrigue, CCHA. I was too gutless to call it, but I said, look out for this Northern Michigan team that's playing hot coming into the playoffs and springing an upset at Michigan Tech. So it'll be Minnesota State hosting Northern Michigan, which playing around with the CHN, you are the committee tool. We have to get a sound effect for that.
Next year, I guess.
Next week. Well, it'll be moot by then.
It'll be
we
exactly.
might have to wait 12 months. You might have to wait a little bit for that one, but the tool. Let's call it the tool.
If you have any suggestions on what the you are the committee,
Yahtzee. I like that actually.
If you have a idea of what the sounder should be, let us know. Then maybe we'll put it in next year.
Yes, but using that tool, there are ways for Mankato to get in if they lose that game, but those are fairly remote. Like it would take a lot of upsets for that to happen. So in effect, it's a winner go home final there for the CCHA. And I don't think that Northern Michigan, I think they've got a decent shot here. Shutting out Tech last weekend. Minnesota State is not the same Mankato as they were last year or in previous years to that. Like I said, they're right on the fringe. They might be, if they don't win this game, they might be the first team out of the field. So are you going to be as bold to predict? Not only are you going to be as bold to predict a Northern Michigan upset here, but are you also going to predict some more CCHA league malfeasance? We're going to go to the showers and then come back a half hour later this year, or do you think they're going to clean that?
I hope so. I mean, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the season, I did predict Northern Michigan would be a dark horse and would really kind of.
Well, it wasn't so much they're going to be a dark horse. They were picked. We mentioned this in our preview podcast that I re-listened to last week, but they were picked by the conference to be second place, which I thought was a little surprising. But the majority of the season, they were, because of that hype, I suppose you could call it, they were somewhat of a disappointment, finishing in fourth, but they really had to hustle to get to fourth, languishing in the second half of the standings for the bulk of the season, but have really picked it up of late. It's 6-game winning streak, I believe, and it's like 9 out of 10.
7 games.
Since 7-game winning streak, after losing at St. Thomas on February 11th, 7-game winning streak, and they're putting up a bunch of goals, put up 9 goals, 8 goals, 7 goals, 3 4-goal games. So, I mean, their scoring is showing up. And, like I said, Minnesota State, took care of business against Ferris Effin State last weekend, but it has not been the same sort of magical year for them. So, I don't know. It'll be an interesting game to watch. I might take Northern in that game.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm going to say Northern's going to win. Boom. Let's do it. Let's get weird.
Well, and I was going to say, because that has a potential of setting up Patolny versus the Gophers, but some Atlantic hockey.
Oh, yeah.
RIT, everyone's been saying for 4 months here when we're talking about the tournament, slotting in the Atlantic hockey team. We've just been using RIT as the placeholder because they've been first place all year and the highest team in pairwise out of that league. But Holy Cross goes in there and wins 2 out of 3. And then Canisius beats Niagara 2 out of 3. So it'll be Canisius hosting Holy Cross. I think it's 6-7 are the seeds in that. No, Canisius, I think, was 4th. But Holy Cross was 7th in the conference. And so
definitely not expected.
Because of that, it's guaranteed that the Atlantic hockey team will be the 16th overall seed, because both of those teams right now are in the 40s in pairwise. And even if Northern Michigan or Colgate or even CC, even if any of these teams win their conference title, they will all be above the Atlantic team. So whereas if RIT would have won, and a team like CC or Northern Michigan, for instance, if they would have won their conference tournaments, RIT probably would not have been the 16th seed. So this locks in the possibility of Holy Cross. It's just a single game, like everybody has, just a single game. They were playing 2 out of 3s in both the quarters and the semis, which is they're the only league to do that, which I'll give them credit to do that. And both of these teams, Canisius and Holy Cross, had to win 3-game series both weekends. So they've played 6 games already in their playoffs.
Just do it all the way through. Do it for your championship round. Like, why stop? Why stop at the semifinals? That's weird to me.
So
at least there's a precedent set for having a single game for semifinals and a final, like the CCHA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they're trying to say because like the NCHC semifinals, that's like the St. Cloud, North Dakota game. That's the semifinals.
Yeah.
So where I think the CCHA and the Big Ten, they're saying, well, we're not playing them on neutral site, so it's as if it's going to be at the X. It's just we're playing on campus sites, but those are just single games. I think that's the
but
they just don't want to play too many games.
You might as well get the gate and try to booster up your more games to play.
I'm with you. I want all NCAA regional game. Regional should be 2 out of 3. I love series.
Yeah.
Too much random crap can happen in a single like a one and done situation. So, but anyway, setting up Holy Cross versus Canisius. I'm obviously rooting for Holy Cross for several reasons. The obvious
for the memes.
Being the Gopher potential rematch in the state of North Dakota. It's got to be, it'll be 16 years to the date. I just did this with the Omaha math. What was that was 06. Was the Holy 06. So that was, right? So those be 17 years, almost to the day, I'm sure, if they meet up. But not only that, but
which also North Dakota would have to lose.
North Dakota have to lose, correct.
So, I mean, that matchup would still happen, but it would just happen in like Allentown.
Right. It probably would happen in Manchester.
Well, you know what I mean.
But, yeah.
But first, I get the memes and I get the jokes. And in Fargo, I think it would be great if all those thousands of people showed up in Holy Cross jerseys that aren't
they've still had since
they still had for the lulz. But it's very important to remember that Holy Cross team was 22 in the pairwise.
And they were not the 16th seed.
They were, yeah, exactly. So it's not like, I mean, everyone does remember it because it's the first number 1 seed to go down. And
that's not even true. Because the Gophers were the number 2. And a number 1 seed has lost. Last year was the first time a number 1 seed has lost in the 16-team era of the tournament, which goes back to 2003. So number 1 seed had lost in each of those first 2 years as well, I believe.
After it expanded to 16?
I thought that was the Schlossman stat. Or maybe it was since Holy Cross. It started since then. You might be right, actually. Scratch all that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, that's what I thought is like after it expanded to 16, that was the first. So,
I think you're right.
But I mean, just the fact stands that it's not like it was this, Ferris F State split between the two teams or something like that. I mean, that Holy Cross team, even though from Atlantic Hockey, 22 in the pairwise is nothing to shake at. So.
And so not only that, but another reason that I'm rooting for it, if Holy Cross wins that game, they will be under 500. Now, we've been all talking about the Wisconsin rule, which only applies to at-large teams, does not apply to conference champs.
Wisconsin rule update.
Didn't think that we were going to get another one of these updates.
I didn't either
for this year, but it's germane. We're talking about it. So. Yeah, you can be as under 500 as you want as long as you win the conference tournament. You'll still have a seat at the table. And was doing some research on this. Only 3 teams have made the tournament under 500 in the pairwise era. And I was going back. I doubt that it was even before the pairwise era because it was only a 4-team tournament until like 78 or something, and those are all conference champs. I can't imagine any under 500 team ever made it before then, and I can't imagine it happening.
Like conference regular season champs or tournament?
Because it used to just be ECAC and WCHA. Those are the only 2 conferences. So they would take, I think they would take 2 teams from each. And one would be the conference tournament champ, and one would either be the regular season champ, or if they were the same, then it'd be like the second place team or something like that. I know there was a team like Michigan State won a national title in the mid-'60s, and there were only a couple of games over 500 because they got really hot in the conference tournament. So maybe there are some. I will have to fact check it more, but I've been back to the 90s and I've only found 3 sub 500 teams. One of those teams was the 08 Wisconsin team. That was the at-large team that was under 500 that put in place or inspired the Wisconsin rule. The other 2 teams, do you want to take a whack at that? It's the same team, same program, 2 different years.
Okay, same program, 2 different years, under 500.
Yep. And it's the only 2 times they've ever made the tournament. They were 0-2 in the tournament. But it was 1-goal games each game.
Gosh, 0-2 of the tournament.
I know I fact-checked this last year. One of those teams was the lowest team in pairwise ever to make the field. They were 49th in pairwise one of those years. The other year couldn't have been too much better. Still in the 40s, but it was not 49th.
Jeez. Nope, I'm going to tap out. What is it?
Alabama Huntsville. 2010 they made it, and 2007.
That's right.
Those are the 2 years
I should have
made it.
I forgot about 2010. I do remember 2007.
So 10, they played Miami. They lost a 1-goal game there. 2007, they lost to Notre Dame in double overtime.
Double OT, right?
Yep. 07 was the year that they were worse. And so they played in the CHA, the defunct, not the CCHA, the CHA, College Hockey America, which I guess it's not technically defunct because there still is a women's side of it. But at that time, it was a 5-team league. Bemidji, Huntsville, Niagara, Robert Morris, and Wayne State, which is from the Detroit suburbs. 5-team league. So that 07, I looked at that 07 team that Huntsville won that tournament. They played that conference tournament in Urbandale, Iowa.
Wow.
Which I'm like, are they? I mean, I started thinking 07, that was the peak of attendance. I'm thinking, was the CHA tournament just such a cash cow that they were making this a traveling show? Because who the hell is coming to Iowa from those 5 programs that I just mentioned? Bemidji being the closest, probably what? I mean, Urbandale's a Des Moines suburb, right? So that's got to be a 10-hour drive for Bemidji. And they're the closest team. So the attendance was 250. So that was the only year I saw they played in Urbandale. The other years I saw they played at Niagara's. They would go to other... one of the other schools, they would host it, which makes a lot more sense than playing it in the middle of Iowa when no team is within a 10-hour drive. So they use that dead barn in Iowa to parlay that into a pretty fluky NCAA berth. But so this would make
almost a first-round victory.
And almost a first-round victory. So this would be historic. It'd be the first time in 10 plus years and only the 4th time, at least in the pairwise era, that a sub 500 team has made it. Canisius will be over 500 whether or not they make it or not, but Holy Cross can be the under 500 team. So it adds another wrinkle there. Definitely be interested to see how that one shakes out. As far as the other just one and done final games on campus tournaments, that's the Big Ten. It's a rematch of last year's Minnesota hosting Michigan. Playing around with the tool, Minnesota, if they lose and Quinnipiac wins, I see that Quinnipiac will be number 1 overall. So
they can flip.
This does mean, I tried to have Minnesota losing. I think if Minnesota and Quinnipiac both lose, then I think Minnesota's still good. But so it's not like they were number 1 overall. They have that on complete lockdown. But and Michigan and Minnesota have been playing some pretty decent games this year. At least that last series they played at Mariucci a month or 2 ago. Some very entertaining games. And so what are you thinking here? Do you got the Gophers holding on there with a home ice advantage? Thinking Michigan's going to be able to pull off an upset here? Sounds like you're Gophers. You're going Gophers.
Yeah, I'm going Gophers on that one. I just think they're too deep versus Michigan. Michigan has a heck of a top line. Minnesota has a heck of a top line, but I just trust Minnesota's defense a little bit more. Not necessarily the goaltending. I think is a toss up either way. I'm not a fan of either, but I just give that slight edge to Minnesota, especially at home as well. So that's who I'm kind of giving there. And then when it comes to Atlantic hockey, yeah, rooting for chaos there. So I am going for Holy Cross. Don't think it's going to happen, but hey, why not? Let's go. Hockey East is just kind of interesting to me because when I'm looking at it, really only Boston is, sitting in a really good situation. Obviously.
They're the only lock.
They're the only lock. Merrimack is, really, really firmly there on the bubble. So, that's where Alaska. I mean, Alaska is really rooting for chalk. So,
well, Alaska wants Merrimack to lose.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily, because chalk would mean that Merrimack would beat Lowell. There are some situations that I found that Merrimack can go 1-1 and get in as an at-large. So not winning the tournament, but they got to win at least one game. If they lose that first game against Lowell, they're most likely done. But if they win that first game and then lose in the title game, there's still some scenarios that can get them in. But again, Merrimack's got the best hope of those other. Providence and Lowell have to win the tournament in order to get in. So there's no at-large possibilities for those two teams. So Merrimack's in a slightly better position there because they don't necessarily need to win the tournament, but it would make it a lot easier for them if they just went out and won it. And they've been playing well too. I mean, they had a real dry spell January, February, but right now they're on a 6-game winning streak, which includes a sweep of Lowell in a home a couple of weeks ago. And like I said, they have Lowell in the semifinal game on Friday. So Providence ended up ending Northeastern's frustrating season in the tournament last weekend. They get BU. Again, BU's taking care of Providence pretty handily this year, but we mentioned too, like with Denver and these kind of teams, they've really kind of locked things up. It's playing these desperate teams that have to win it all, have to win the conference tournament in order to get a berth in the NCAAs. It's always kind of tough playing those teams when you don't have a ton on the line. So that should be interesting as well. And similar, I guess, the ECAC, Quinnipiac's obviously golden. Harvard is golden. Cornell, silver, bronze-ish. They're not golden, and if they lose that game against Harvard, there's definitely plenty of scenarios that would have them out if they go 0-1 in this tournament. Colgate definitely needs to win 2 games in order to get in the tournament. They cannot be in at large, and Harvard can improve its position. They can get it back. They can go up to 5 overall by winning this tournament. So they have something to gain. But Cornell probably maybe has the most to play for here. Like, a win against Harvard might do it, but if they lose that game, it could get dicey. So, and I'm sure that's another team that Alaska is rooting against. They want Cornell to lose. Because it would improve their position as well. So yeah, it's. Do you have like a pick? Like if you want to pick. So you said you think Canisius is going to win Atlantic, and you said that you got.
I said I'm rooting for chaos. So I'm rooting for Holy Cross. But yeah, I think Canisius is going to win.
Well, I'll take Holy Cross. I'll take Holy Cross.
Knowing really nothing about either team.
Right.
I mean,
of course.
So that's where.
But what about these others? You got to pick for ECAC, Hockey East.
Hockey East. I don't trust anyone other than BU. So that's who I'm going.
I think I agree. I agree with that.
And then we have ECAC. I mean, I'm probably going to give the edge to Quinnipiac. They've kind of run through everyone, although I don't know. Is it weird to say I'm not sold on Quinnipiac? I probably should be by just their sheer amount of wins, but I don't know.
There's always those question marks with the schedule that they play and not being tested a whole lot. ECAC is doing a little bit better this year. Like I said, if Cornell survives here, that would mean 3 teams are in from the ECAC, which I don't think we would have said that is going to be the case coming into the year. So ECAC is a little bit better than it has been in recent years, but still a league that is, let's say, bottom heavy. So if you want to take Quinny, I'll take Harvard.
All right, let's do that.
They beat them in the championship game last year in the tournament, so I'll root for those plucky underdogs.
There you go,
Harvard.
How boring am I?
And then you said Gophers over Michigan.
Yep,
I think I'm going to go with that too. So it should be a fun weekend. Probably again, I'll be firing up multiple devices to stream a lot of these games.
I'm happy being on this side of the bubble. Obviously safely in where I can just root for chaos. So, I mean, if we get to, a championship Saturday where, we do, we do have a Mass Lowell versus Providence and a Cornell versus Colgate, and Northern Michigan is up 3-rip in the third period. Like, let's get weird. I'm okay
at that
with
point.
it.
We need to get the cut in the hidden camera to the Alaska coach.
Oh yeah,
who's like pacing nervously, smoking a heater,
Speaking
muttering
of sinkers and floaters. Alaska dropped 2 spots for not doing anything, and Western Michigan obviously dropped 2 spots. Everyone is pretty set in. Cornell did really help their chances, obviously getting into the semifinal by jumping up a couple spots as well. North Dakota doesn't have a chance at all at Nat Large, but they made some hay, but they don't matter. So, but yeah, the top 6 were the same. The top 8 were all unchanged. So,
and Michigan Tech, I was surprised they didn't move. Actually, they gained. I think
they gained,
weren't they? Went from 11 to 10 with a loss.
Mm-hmm.
So figure that out, I suppose. But and a couple of these other bubble teams mentioned Northeastern, they're done. Omaha, done. UConn, done. Notre Dame and Michigan State losing to the Gophers. They're officially done.
I should have just gone with my gut in our midseason podcast.
That'll be another one I'm going to have to listen to because I'm way. I remember I had UMass making the tournament. They are at 29th in pairwise as they finish the season. So that'd be much worse than it was last year. I think we did pretty well last year, but this year is not going to be as good.
This year, yeah. I mean, we had Merrimack in and UConn in.
Merrimack's our only hope, really, for the other Hockey East teams, because I think I had 5 Hockey East teams in, and I'm going to get at least 3 of them wrong, at maybe 4.
I had 5 Big Ten teams in, even though I said like 30 times how I don't think that Michigan State has the wins in the schedule for it, and I still picked them.
And I think I was thinking, I think this is too many Hockey East teams. And I'm thinking maybe it's not going to be the Big Ten that's going to get the extra team in. It's going to be maybe NCHC, which again, around Christmas time, the narrative was that the NCHC was a little bit down this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Big Ten was really up, and Hockey East was up. Hockey East is like, we're talking about top heavy leagues and bottom heavy leagues. Hockey East is like the classic middle heavy league. Like every team there is like a 5th seed.
Everyone's average.
I mean, you got BU, and they're pretty decent. But everyone else, I mean, and then like Vermont's terrible. But then everyone else, all the other 9 teams in the league are just fairly average. And so that's just how it kind of played out this year, because all those teams beat up on one another. And because of that, there was no other teams other than BU that was able to emerge as a solid at-large candidate. So it's just interesting how that all shook out. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it because I'm not exactly sure what all we had and what the percentage of correct teams that we'll have in.
I'm looking at, kind of my notes from that podcast, and I do see here that I did end up, I believe, with 4 from the NCHC. Denver, St. Cloud State, Western Michigan, and North Dakota. That is where. So,
again, I know I was discussing it. I don't know if I had the guts to actually go with that. Again, I'm gonna have to listen to it. But so that means you're gonna be rooting for North Dakota this weekend.
At least I have it underlined here. I have it underlined in my notes. North Dakota.
That's not the official copy of the podcast.
Of the transcript.
Your notes is not the official podcast. Yeah. So I'm going to have to listen to it, and I will report back to you next week.
Fair enough.
And I will say you're going to be in the middle of a couple of pints after that Saturday title game. But I did this last year, just like a short 15-minute, 20-minute podcast that I'm going to do a final bracketology.
With your prediction?
Yes. And I believe last year I nailed it.
I think so.
Sure.
Yep.
I think this year's going to be a little bit more difficult. But I want to take a whack at it before the field's announced on Sunday morning.
I like it. Yeah. You can throw that up. In your kind of playing around with the committee and whatnot.
Yeah.
I played around with it as well. What were some of the matchups that you were looking at for St. Cloud State? What would you like? What would you be worried about? Kind of, what were your thoughts on that? Not necessarily where they go or anything like that. Don't go too much into the bracketology of it if you even did for all the results. But just because there's one that shot out to me. I was like, this is who I really want to play.
Well, so you have to do a little bit of bracketology because right now 8-9 is Penn State versus Ohio State.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be a first round matchup. The committee will not have that be the first round matchup. So you have to kind of move some stuff around, and you have to know a little bit of how the committee will handle that situation because both those teams don't have any more games left. And so it's going to depend on the other teams around them to break up that 8-9 matchup. But so right now, how they would break it up likely would be St. Cloud at 7 would play number 9 Ohio State, and then Penn State would play Michigan Tech at 10. They play 8-10, 7-9 versus 7-10, 8-9, I would think. And from how I was playing around with it, a lot of it came down to Ohio State seems like a likely candidate. St. Cloud, did you find a scenario that they were going to be 9 or below, i.e. a 3 seed? Because I did not. I may have come across it, just forgot it. But all the ones that I was playing around with seemed to have them. I mean, if they win the NCHC tournament, they can move up to 5th. I saw that as their sort of high watermark. Yep. But anywhere in the 2 seed band is all I found. Anywhere from 5, 6, 7, or 8. I did not see them 9 or below, or for that matter, anywhere in number 1 overalls.
If we take a look at the
CHN pairwise probability matrix,
right there out of the 20, or I guess now all. I don't know if there's 20,000 common. Yeah, there probably is. But anyway, there was a 3% has St. Cloud at 9. I have not been able to find any scenario of that.
When I checked out the matrix a couple of days ago, it seemed off. It seemed like it had 100% for the Gophers to be the number 1 overall seed, which is clearly not right because I was able to find plenty of scenarios with them being dropped down to 2 using the Yahtzee tool. So it may have been updated since then, but and they don't even have it on their front page. I don't even know where to find it right now. But I'm glad you're able to get some more mileage out of the Sounder for now. So
I think they tweeted about there was a bug and it did get fixed. So
even if they were 9, that wouldn't change things too terribly. Other than the fact that because at 7. It also seems unlikely that Penn State's going to drop out of the 2 seed band as well. Like, if you're asking me, like, what I'd like to play Penn State, even if it is in Allentown. I'd rather play Penn State than Ohio State. And
really?
Ohio State doesn't really scare me either.
Really,
I'd much rather play Penn State.
I would much rather play. Like right away, I was like, "Ooh, man! If we play Ohio State, really any of the Big Ten, Michigan Tech kind of scares me." Although, with Quinnipiac's goalie, he had vaulted numbers, and we were able to light him up pretty well. But Michigan Tech still kind of scares me a little bit with their team and with their type of makeup of team can kind of give maybe a little bit of scares in the playoff for St. Cloud. I just feel like that's kind of that type of team gives us fits a little bit more than like the run and gun type.
And I don't know if I would classify Ohio State as run and gun. I definitely would classify Penn State that way, which is maybe why I would like that matchup more. I would agree that Michigan Tech is more defensive oriented than Ohio State, but I think Ohio State plays a similar style. They've got a very good penalty kill. I believe it's the best in the country, and their goalie is pretty good himself. Dobish, who last year kind of came out of nowhere as a freshman, put up a great season for them. And again, this year it's a .918 save. So I don't think he's anyone to necessarily sneeze at or take lightly. If you say it's not something to sneeze at, doesn't that mean that they're not good? Anyway, I think Ohio State's I think they're a tougher opponent than you're thinking, but I'm more thinking of St. Cloud's perspective. I don't put any team passing with saying to St. Cloud that they're a great matchup, just the way that St. Cloud has been playing of late. Even with this coming off a series win here against Duluth, any of these teams I could see them losing to. I could see all the teams that we talked about, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan Tech. I could see St. Cloud winning those games with ease. In the scenario, I saw some scenarios too of St. Cloud winning the NCAC tournament, getting up to 5th, and Minnesota State winning. Could see Mankato matchup, which I'd like, just based on that they swept them earlier this year. Actually, I don't really like the Cornell matchup. If I think it's a remote possibility, but I don't like ECAC defensive first teams with St. Cloud. They scare me more than defensive first CCHA or Big Ten teams do. Plus, Cornell has I don't know. I don't quite like that matchup. But and like the Minnesota State one, like if it's a 5-12 matchup, they wouldn't put them with Minnesota as number 1 overall. But it is kind of intense. Like if Minnesota drops from number 1 overall to have maybe that be the Fargo regional. It's interesting. It's interesting to think that to like have because they did that when like St. Cloud's when their first number 1 overall seed year when they played in Sioux Falls, they gave them the 6-12 matchup, which I was very upset at the time because if you're the number 1 overall, you should get that 8-9 matchup. But they wanted to have a local presence there, so they put it was the 6-12 matchup was Mankato and Duluth. And I think they put him in there because of the local factor. Mm-hmm. So last year we saw the committee being very sort of slavish in its adherence to bracket integrity. The committee's makeup is different this year. There's some members from last year, but the chair of the committee is different. So I wouldn't expect it to be exactly the same. Plus, I don't think that this year is going to work out as easily as last year did. Last year, I don't think there was any first round matchups, like interconference matchups in the first round that you had to bust up, which this year it seems like right now that 8-9 matchup with Penn State and Ohio State, and because of those teams aren't playing any more games, good possibility that they're going to stick at those 8 and 9. So you're going to have to do something about that. So just more of those scenarios, it's going to throw things more into limbo and less predictable. So yeah, I would say the teams that we've mentioned here, because obviously the other teams in the 3-band, I mean, Western Michigan, we're not going to play them the first round, obviously.
Yep.
If Merrimack can slip up, can get into the 3-band if they win Hockey East. But that's a remote possibility. Alaska likely going to be a 4 seed at this point, and probably like hanging on for dear life at that point. So I think the teams, like we mentioned, they're less likely Penn State because they're going to be in that 2 seed. But Ohio State, Michigan Tech, less likely Cornell and Mankato. I think it's between Ohio State and Tech, and there's some, or if there is a way that they can somehow slip to the 3-band and play Penn State, I'd rather do that. But that's probably the least likely of any of these scenarios. So, but it sounds like you want to play Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm just not scared of Ohio State. Just watching them play a couple times this year, just looking at them, I was just like, this doesn't look like they are a decent team. Which, I mean, is kind of weird to say considering, they do have a 20-win season, but it's, I can't remember who I watched them play. I mean, obviously, I just watched them play.
Played Michigan this last weekend.
This last weekend, and yeah, they didn't look good then. But I watched them play also earlier this weekend. I'm like, what is the appeal of this team? How are they ranked so high? I didn't really understand it, and I think even at that time, I saw some of the Twitter discourse too, being like, "What are we making of Michigan? Or what are we making of Ohio State?" Because they were on kind of a losing stretch at that point. And, they've kind of stumbled in here kind of late in the season as well. They did squeak out some of those wins against Michigan, shootout win, and the win at in Cleveland at the face-off at the lake. But, I mean, just before that, I mean, they lost 4-0 to Wisconsin. Like... Why should I be scared of them? You can't lose to Wisconsin.
Yeah, I remember it was like a month or two ago, I mentioned of the teams in the pairwise right now, like the team that we've spent the least amount of time talking about is Ohio State. So what do we think about this team? Because it's kind of like, what's the deal with Ohio State? They're doing like a Seinfeld bit.
What's
almost.
The deal?
And similar to Grape Nuts, I don't know what the deal is with Ohio State so much, except that I think their goalie's decent. That's really all I got. And their penalty kill is really good. Elite, you can even say. They got this Jake Wise on the team who was Boston University transfer. He scored in that NCAA game against St. Cloud. So maybe he's on the revenge tour if they do lock horns. But pretty much all I got about the Buckeyes. But yeah, it's not so much about scouting the opponent. I'm more interested in scouting how St. Cloud's looking. Because if they're looking like how they played against, say, Miami, they're going to get routed by any of these teams that we mentioned.
I mean, that's true. That's kind of how it all always kind of shakes up. So, questions. I suppose we should just hop in there, huh? We got quite a few. A friend of the show, Dan Jacobson, our resident Minnesota Duluth fan. How are the Twins going to be this year? Good chuckle since he's already thinking about baseball. Pitch clock and all. I will say disappointing because obviously, but I have not been thinking about them. Haha, my team is still playing. That's what I'll say. Just gonna
if he wants the long answer, he can send me an email, but I'll just put it at 79 and 83.
79. I will take the under.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
There's some Kool-Aid chuggers that are saying this is their division to lose.
Yeah, and it's would depend a lot.
That's what
on
makes it so fun. Last year,
healthy.
my prediction was 77-85, and they went into the last game of the season with 77 wins. And I was so frustrated that they won that last game because I would have had it right on.
Right on. Next question. Which goalie is Brett going with, and how is he going to make that decision? I think every decision is going to be a game at a time, and then maybe a quick trigger and a one and done, a quick hook. So, I think next game against North Dakota, you go with Castor. I don't know if Castor played. Yes, he did play in the second game. Castor didn't play against
North
Miami.
Dakota.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. But I still, with how Castor played on Sunday, I think you give him the nod there on Friday.
But yeah, quicker hook. Like if they played that second game against Duluth, when they were down 4-1, and he takes the timeout. If that's a single elimination situation,
yeah,
he makes a goalie change there.
Yeah, I think so.
But he did have the luxury of having a game in the hand, so to speak. So
that's my theory.
But now we're into. This tournament, this NCAA tournament, I guess it's not, your season's not going to end if you lose, but essentially you're down to win and that's it. So I think we might see a pull if there. Let's hope we don't. But
that's true.
But if it is a situation like that, that you need a quick momentum boost. We saw that in Omaha, like we mentioned, like he's not unwilling to make a move there. So he's just got to be a little bit more decisive in playoff time. So yeah, like I said, hopefully we don't see that, but yeah, I would agree. Rock with Castor. And if he's playing as well as he did on Sunday, we might not see Bassey the rest of the year.
So. Yeah. Zach, superior club level snack. Turkey carver or prime rib carver sandwich. I've only been into the club level actually a couple of times. And I actually think like this is the kind of the premier tournament to really do it in. If you're going to get because I don't think the club level is that much more expensive, if it is even more expensive at all. But you get quicker service to concessions and et cetera, et cetera. I like being a little bit closer. So, but as far as that answer, I always go with the turkey. Really, anytime actually I have prime rib.
Surprises me.
Every time I have prime rib, I'm disappointed. And maybe it's because it's just room temperature meat at that point. And it's just like, why is this not like I see it and it looks like it should be cooked? Why is this cold? Why this doesn't make sense to me. But so that's where I actually go with probably I would go with the turkey.
Yeah, because I just surprised that you're the one that said, "Hey, turkey on Thanksgiving overrated." So I figured you'd have gone prime rib all day long there, but.
I am more disappointed more often than not on prime rib than I am with turkey. Turkey, at least I know what I'm getting.
I'd have to know more information. Like we're talking like a au jus situation with the prime rib, because that would seem to be difficult in a stadium setting. I feel like, so it's like, and yeah, I might go with the turkey based on the intangibles, but we're just talking meats. And all other things being equal, I'm going prime rib 10 out of 10 times.
Really? I mean, I guess I shouldn't be. I think I know I'm in the minority when it comes to that. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Derek Johnson, how many quote unquote birds will drunken UND fans display on camera after SCSU scores? I hope a lot.
Let's hope several.
Let's hope all of the middle fingers go up, and it happens many, many times under Ritter, and then also Helston too. Let's maybe get a double goal situation, right? Let's
Johnson. It's getting into that third string,
right? Exactly. Alex Fern, who I want to thank Alex and Brian also for giving me a little shout out on KVSC. So that was really nice. Yeah, my mom texted me and said, "Oh, they shot you out of KVSC," so it was pretty cool.
What did they say?
Oh, they told me to cue Freddie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and then also they said that they it was kind of late when Miller got a little bit of power play time, and they said, "Well, he got his wish." So,
wow. Yeah. That's great. That'd be nice if they shouted me out on their broadcasts.
No, I'm a lot more active on Twitter. I talk to them on Twitter. So
this is true.
Yeah. I'm not advocating for you to get on Twitter because
if it means that I would be name dropped on national radio, then I just might.
Oh, there you go. So just create an account just for that, just to tweet at them for that. So, I personally think Wiley should play more regular pair minutes from now on. He seems to thrive when he has good time on ice. CJ added with that he had an unreal series in his opinion, not just because he scored, but he always seemed like he had the puck, was involved, and the Huskies are in the ozone and the ice. Could be a catalyst down the stretch if he keeps this play up. I agree with Wiley overall in the series. I do think that he has taken a step above Reiner's, and granted, now our defense is kind of in that shaken state. I don't expect to see Lutke on Friday. So I'm going to expect, essentially just the same lineup that we had for this last game. But I do think that Wiley is going to get more minutes, and he's going to get the power play time as well. Because I think he looks solid. Reiner's, I think, still every once in a while has a little bit of a unsureness about him. I think it shows. I think it's going to come, but I think it's just the game has come to Wiley a little bit quicker than Reiner's.
Yeah, and not much offensive push from Reiner's. He's definitely much more of a stay-at-home guy. Considering Treyball's injury status and how he looked this weekend, I'd say Wiley's hopped him in my power rankings as well. Maybe even Peart. But that says that, hey, I think he's a guy that's I'm looking forward to watching next year and beyond because of the experience he's getting, especially at the end of the year here, power play time especially. I see some prime minutes going his way here in the future. So
some prime rib minutes,
prime extra horseradish, maybe.
No. I may be DMTR Gaming. I may be overreacting because I was a bit tense this weekend, but did it seem like the refs were not calling anything to try to prove a point? I swear they were telling players to knock it off instead of penalizing them. And, we talked a little bit about kind of the differences in how the the series were called between, especially the game threes between, Omaha and North Dakota and our series. But yeah, I do think there were a lot of extracurriculars, and, I guess we didn't talk about the check from behind in the first game, where Brand got hit. And again, who just seems to be the crash test dummy on this team, just always getting him just.
I shouldn't laugh, but you're right.
He always is on the receiving end of these hits. But I I don't know, like looking at that,
That
it's
was
like,
Jello too, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Our
it's
guy Jello.
and it's like, if that's not, a game misconduct, I don't like how do you say anything else is?
I think it was pretty violent hit.
Yeah.
It looked bad on the replay, and that's what they're looking at.
Mhm.
I only have to chalk it up to the fact that it's playoffs, and you don't want to kick a guy out in the playoffs. I said it before.
What did
podcast.
Gino call it? The crippler or something like that? And I'm like,
I've learned to just sort of tune him out because my brother was texting me it was almost to an annoying degree about how much Mark Parrish was getting on his nerves doing the state tournament games. I just had to say we got to set the bar here for the Parrish family in the announcing category pretty low. And just told him the mute button's your friend. Use it liberally. And yeah, I guess that's the last that we'll hear of Gino this weekend.
Rubbin's racing.
Yeah, you said that he says it a lot. It's just white noise to me at this point. So I'm glad I missed that reference.
But yeah, like I'm just happy that I guess Lutke did get injured in some aspect. I guess I don't know if it was something tweak or if it was actually a result of a hit or something like that. But I do think like it was close to getting out of hand at some points, and there were a lot of scuffles that at least take both of them or something like that to try to get
there was that play where
the game.
It was literally like a Greco-Roman wrestling match with Cranola and somebody else for Duluth right on the side of the net. And it was just play goes on. No coincidentals, no nothing. And like I said earlier in the podcast, I generally like less calls. But from your perspective, at least like call some coincidentals because I think that keeps the players honest a little bit, and it doesn't give any one team an advantage. You don't get into the habit of, well, we call one on them, so now we got to call one on them, and then it spirals out of control pretty quickly. But yeah, do a couple of coincidentals, keep them honest, and don't kind of screw with the playoff sort of intensity, but just sort of have them dial it back a little bit. I think that would have been appropriate.
And then last question, Eric Zamora, who was my hockey partner actually this weekend, was playing in the Goons for Good tournament at the MAC. First time I laced up the skates in probably about 10 or plus years. And I showed every bit of it. I got chirped a little bit for my gut hanging out. I got chirped for using an Easton Synergy stick, which apparently isn't cool anymore. So it was, but it was a good tournament. I scored some goals, so I guess that's a plus. Nice.
What kind of player are you? Are you a grease pan type? Or
I was always
setup guy. Are you a sniper? What?
No, I definitely
defense.
Wasn't.
Maybe.
No, I think I had one snipe in my career. But as far as when I played in high school, I played junior gold because we didn't have a high school an official team when I played down in the land of 3A, the desert hockey, the hockey desert where there's just nothing there. But no, I was more, and I wish I would have noticed this early. I didn't really notice it until my senior year, but I was just way more efficient as a passer. And I wish I wasn't so hung up on goals. I wish I would have given more stock into assists. And I probably would have been a more effective player because and still even then after just a little bit on the ice, I'm a pretty good passer. So, but
I was pretty good assist guy too. I would always score 8 goals a year. It seemed like 8. There's one time I scored twice on a shift.
Ooh,
that was like the best shift of my life. But I was more of I liked passing, but then I was just parking in front of the net. I was like the biggest and slowest kid on the ice, or on my team at least. And so I sort of knew my role.
Sure.
But still had fun. That was the important thing.
Yep. So yeah, I was always, in front of that or trying to get the tips or whatnot. And that's kind of what my what I really liked. So.
Well, do you have any college eligibility left? Because we could use one of those guys.
No, they would not. No, I mean, especially after you'd be like, well, this guy complains about Selquist this much, and he's trying to lug his fat A over the rink and over the boards every time. No, but it was 4 games. My thighs are killing me right now. Like, my life is just biofreeze right now is what I'm going to take a bath in. But it was cool because my kids were able to watch. My daughter's 5, my twins are 3, and I guess I didn't or my twins will be 3 in about 2 weeks. They
got the same birthday as you?
Geez, no, 1 week. Yeah, the 21st. So
sure, you get that right.
Yeah. Well, it was the counting of the days is where I messed up, not the date itself. I know that because it's 3-2-1. 3-2-1.
That's good.
3-2-1
to remember.
3-2-1 of 20 is how everything kind of flows together. So, I actually get a little bit confused on Clara's birthday because Clara's is 8/19 of 17, and sometimes I switch the 17 and the 19, and so I get a little bit confused right there. So, anyway, back to as I'm giving all my kids' names and birth dates out, which probably isn't.
Yeah, can you give their social security numbers out too, please?
Do you have a 16?
The hospital that they were born at? Just
the last 4 is good, I think. So, but I didn't think I would care that much or whatnot. It was like, hey, I got these games. I mean, it's a charity tournament and whatnot, but God, they were loving having Dad out there. They didn't know much about hockey, but they know what hockey is, and they were cheering, and they were, hi, Dad. Like after every shift, I'm huffing over the side just when I would see them, and they're just so excited to see me out there. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
and I fell right on my face on a 3-on-1, just face planted. I hit like a rut in the ice as I was going down and just toppled over. Beautiful 3-on-1 opportunity. Right in front of my kids, right in front of my wife.
It was still a 2-on-1 then, unless you were the one.
I was. I had the puck. I had the puck,
oh.
and it was.
That's less fun.
Yeah, exactly. I was really hoping that my wife wasn't watching, but she was. So she might have started divorce proceedings after that, and I don't think I would blame her. It was pretty embarrassing. So, but anyway, Eric, thank you for telling me to get into this tournament. It was a lot of fun. I might actually kind of get back into hockey, or some old timers. They have a kind of open skate at the max. I might kind of get back into it a little bit. Maybe update my hockey stick because the Eastern Synergy isn't cool anymore. But he posed a really good question. Are these the 2 best rivalry games we could see in the semis? And I was trying to play around with some other ones, and I guess it all just kind of came down to when you consider it a rivalry. Are you talking about how competitive it has been, or are you talking about just from a historical aspect of everything, location, because the Gold Pan and the rivalry between Denver, Colorado College, I can see that, but at the same time, when you win 11 straight, is that's like, it's got to be somewhat even, right? And so that's where I kind of got hung up, as maybe a first round matchup of North Dakota Denver would be a little bit more of a rivalry. But I think just kind of overall, from a rivalry aspect, is this kind of the best we could see in the makeup of the NCHC?
Yeah, I mean, you could think, yeah. So we're not talking about this year's contest,
correct?
Like just in general.
At least that's how I took it. I mean, but yeah,
it's because thinking like North Dakota, Denver, and then maybe Minnesota, Duluth, and St. Cloud.
That's kind of the other way I was going with it. If we're not going to do CC in Denver.
Yeah,
but I mean, they play for a trophy. I mean, that's so. I mean, I guess de facto that's got to be included. But man, CC's got to win something, right?
Yeah, I think this. I don't know, because we've talked about it too, like rating how St. Cloud's rivalries are versus Duluth and North Dakota and other teams. But let's just keep it to those two, because I think that the hatred for North Dakota goes back further, and the Duluth one is a little bit more recent. At least maybe NCHC era in particular has really sort of supercharged that rivalry. But I mean, there's like many times that St. Cloud and North Dakota have played in the old Final Five. Less so with Duluth. So this might be, I think, right. I think this is better than just the one factor is CC is not the CC that they once were. Yeah. Like if this was mid 2000s, this would be great.
But also, I don't really know what North Dakota feels about St. Cloud State. Like, do they consider this anything even? Or we
I think they do. They're not their number one rival for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe not their number two. I wonder, compare North Dakota's rivalry from their perspective, St. Cloud and Duluth. That's interesting. That's another one. I think their rivalry with Duluth has been increased over the years. But remember in the WCHA, St. Cloud and North Dakota were the designated rival.
Yeah.
So they'd play each other four games a year, every year for like the last 10 years of the conference or whatever it was. So I think that helped boost that rivalry then. And I still think every year except one or two, they've played 4 games a year in the NCHC too, plus some playoff matchups. Even in NCAAs, they've met before. So I think that the rivalry with North Dakota and St. Cloud is thick. It's not, like I said, Dakota's rivalries are more strong with Denver and Minnesota, but maybe as a number 3. So, but yeah, I think these are good rivalries, and I do think that heightens the atmosphere and everything this weekend. Looking forward to it.
Yep, very much so. Well, that about does it for this episode of the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Again, I am Weldie at More Clappers, MOAR, More Clappers. Andrew, you can reach him at
Huskies Hockey Podcast at gmail.com. Send me an email.
Send an email. I just realized I totally forgot to give you some of the rundowns of the answers from Scorsese Fest.
Oh, really?
That people
Well, you did send me one. You sent me one. I thought that's all we got. I didn't get any from our email. I guess I should double check, but I don't think we got any. What else did we get?
Yeah, it was, I'm just kind of going through now.
Because I know we had one vote for casino.
We had a taxi driver with Raging Bull second.
Someone's got to put Goodfellas up there, I'm sure.
Tie between Aviator and Gangs of New York. Casino.
Yeah, that's the one that you showed me.
Yep. And then mine is Goodfellas. So,
well, it's some good Scorsese.
Yep. But then I realized that maybe I should watch Raging Bull and Taxi Driver.
Those two, or my favorite. I don't think it's better than those two, but my favorite is The King of Comedy. And if you haven't seen it, check it out.
I'll put that on the list for the off season.
Do that.
So perfect. Well, until next time, go Huskies.
Woo! Woo!